like the year sign isn't even important. There's Chinese astrology out there that will literally tell you that a tiger won't have a good year in a tiger year. They'll tell you that a tiger will have a good year in a monkey. So understand there's a lot of complete nonsense like that floating around, and which is to say that our competition here does not really exist in terms of giving out facts when it comes to astrology. Now, Western astrology is not as strong as Eastern, but it definitely matters. Your Gemini with the hands, Sagittarius with those legs, all of you big bone Capricorns out there. But there's a lot of Western astrologers out there who will tell you that the sun sign is not even important. They'll tell you about the rising sign, the moon sign. Understand that the sun plays a huge role in personality as far as Western astrology goes. Why do you think Leos have such big personalities? Leos love the spotlight because they're ruled by the sun. Frankly, it's common sense. Just go outside during the day and look up. If I have to explain to people why the sun is important to us here on Earth, I don't know what to tell you. Now, Saturn is going to be your next important planet, especially if you're a Capricorn or an Aquarius. The point is, don't be fooled by this fraud info that's out there. The year sign is important in Chinese astrology, and the sun sign matters in Western to a lesser extent. But I want to talk a little bit about the moon. Does the moon have an effect in astrology? Of course it does. The moon pulls on the tides. The earth is 70% water, just like our physical vessels. But in terms of matrix, the moon operates in its role as one of the collection agents. It's not the only one, but think of the moon kind of like a vampire that feeds on emotions. Emotions are food for the moon. Now, if you're a water sign, especially a Cancer, but also a Pisces or Scorpio, the moon will definitely have more of a strong effect on you. If you're a Capricorn, it will have the least effect on you. Those emotions that most people are feeding into it, especially on a full moon, Capricorns are not influenced by that like others. This is one of the reasons that Capricorns are great teachers. Figure it out. As far as what your moon sign actually means to you, again, it's far from the first thing to look at, but the moon sign basically has an effect or an influence on the subconscious, the unconscious, or what I call the mechanical behavior patterns that you exhibit. And they're going to come in phases. Stuff that happens without you even realizing it. So, for example, if you have a Pisces in moon, you're going to be prone to daydreaming too much. Moon in Gemini, sometimes you'll have a tendency to tell a bunch of little lies without even realizing it. It's that simple. Now, a worthy aim for anyone trying to evolve is to make the subconscious conscious, to bring it up to a conscious level. But again, in terms of matrix, the moon just has its role. The elite love to do things on full moons to maximize the emotional energy harvest. But in terms of astrology, the moon is more of a role player or a sixth man than a starting five. Now, always remember that numerology supersedes any form of astrology for a simple reason. The signs are all numbered. The life path is your most important number in numerology. Next is the day you were born. So the 1st through the 31st, each has a secondary effect to your life path. Next, I want to talk about the universal year versus the personal year energy. The universal year starts on January 1st for everyone. In 2023, you have the 2023. Add them up, you get the number 7. 2023 equals 7. The personal year is exactly that. It's your personal new year that starts on your birthday. Everyone should take into account the universal year, but ultimately you should follow the energy of your personal cycle in order to maximize the potential of that year for yourself. Now, if you watch the NBA playoffs this year, a guy called Chris Paul had his birthday on May 6th in the middle of a series. And the difference was night and day. Immediately on and after his birthday, his scoring average dropped off from 22 to less than 10. It's like he literally lost a step overnight. And the only thing that we can point to is the fact that he had his birthday. See, the energy shifted for him. I bring up sports examples because you can actually measure drastic differences in production based on these different cycles. I also find it interesting that the Twitter files weren't announced until a few days after Jack Dorsey's birthday in November, the former CEO of Twitter. Now, I want to follow this theme about misinformation because many numerologists, websites, books out there will tell you that the personal year starts on January 1st for everyone. See, as a practitioner of numerology, if you're giving out this information, it's not a case of, oh, this is your truth and this is my truth, and we can all live happily ever after. If you're giving out this wrong information, you can actually mess people's lives up because people are going to be trying to do things under the wrong energy. I gave a couple examples of how the birthday would shift the energy, but there's countless examples. And I encourage all of you to look for them on your own, close to you, around their birthday, and see the switch. In the process, you're learning how to read energy. Start paying attention and see these shifts. That's where the energy goes. On the subject of universal and personal energies, while overall in 2023, there's going to be more of a loner type of energy. That's in line with the 7. But if you're under a 3 energy personally, the number of the social butterfly, you still have to communicate in order to take advantage of it. So it's very simple in this case. If you're going to be talking, talk about knowledge, talk about theories, talk about all the little interesting things and trivia that you know about this or that. That's how you would take best advantage of the energies together. With all this information that GG33 has put out publicly and here in the academy, all it requires is a little bit of creativity and application to make this stuff work for you. Now, I understand that many of you are brand new to this and don't really have a grip on it yet, nor would you be expected to. And that's exactly why we have experts in GG33, including myself, who give personal readings in much more detail. Next, I want to talk a little about the 8. First of all, 8 is the number of money, not wealth. Something that many numerologists failed to figure out. In the past, if someone's an 8, they'll probably tell you, oh, you're rich. Not necessarily the case. 8s go through up and down. The shape of the 8 represents karma, or what goes around comes around. It's reflexive. It's a feedback loop. Unfortunately, most or at least many of these karmic loops concerning the matrix tend to fall on the negative side. The fact that we can have karmic debt attached to our souls from past lives about stuff that we literally cannot remember. To me, at least, that shows that the system is somewhat stacked against us. But from a more diabolical perspective, it's pretty ingenious because it's like creating a virtually infinite energy source where those negative emotions created, like fear, hate, and greed, that can be harvested like a battery. But this is where having knowledge can give you power because we, specifically people with souls, we are the ones that make the world good. We're the ones that bring good energy into the world. And we have the power to create positive feedback loops using the 8 energy ourselves. This is exactly what you're doing when you price things in the number 8, or you pay bills on the 8, or you found a business, because that money, energy, currency will come back around to you, and by extension, your family. Disclaimer: if you're using the 8 or just with money in general, make sure that you're not a fraud. Make sure that your product is what you say it is because you're not a part of the elite and it will come back at you. The karma will come back on you. Maybe not today or tomorrow, but it will. Yes, the elite have more loopholes than anyone to get around this stuff. The difference between other small time frauds who went down, like Bernie Madoff, is the elite's pyramid scheme has that eye at the top. But ultimately, what they're doing is they're just deferring their karma. They're pushing it off, funnel it here, funnel it there. Here's a fall guy, pass it over here, donate to charity. Ultimately, they're shielded. If you look at the name Rothschild, it means red shield. Red symbolizing the blood or the bloodline, and the shield representing protect the bloodline at all cost. Now, karma in itself is not meant to be inherently good or bad. But again, the system tends to be stacked against you. The fact is, you can even get karmic debt just for being good looking. I want you to think that over. Now, when people create these self sustaining positive feedback loops, the powers that be don't like that too much. Look at how the 2020 reset destroyed so many small businesses owned by real people. Look at history, what happened to Black Wall Street. Look up the petrodollar and what's happened to anyone who tried to create or invent a hydro or solar powered vehicle. Next, on the topic of karma, let's look at Bernie Madoff. If you don't know who that is, look him up. Bernie Madoff was born in a tiger year. Now, he was building up his massive Ponzi scheme for over 30 years until he was even investigated in 1992. 1992 is the year of the monkey, enemy to the tiger. That's not even the example I wanted to bring up here. Bernie Madoff was convicted on March 12th, 2009. Add those up, you get the number 17. 17 reduces to 8. He was sentenced on June 26th, another 8. He was sentenced to 170 billion in restitution, another 8. All of this happened when he hit his 8th personal cycle. So why did Bernie get hit with the karma when so many frauds are still walking around the world today, not in prison? Well, there could be many reasons. He wasn't a part of the real club. His scam got too big. He ripped off too many powerful people. And Bernie himself was Jewish, but he also ripped off many big Jewish organizations. And there's always a bigger fish. You don't see any Rothschilds in prison. but they can't beat the Matrix fully either. They just know more loopholes than anyone else, and they have many ways of shielding themselves. One of their mottos: when it comes to knowledge, we want for nothing. Finally, I just want to make a point about math versus numerology. Math covers the quantitative side, math covers the material side. Numerology covers the qualitative side of numbers, or what we could call the spiritual or the essence of numbers. Without numerology, math is essentially soulless, or it's just like a machine. But without math, there's no addition, there's no structure in numerology. So it's not about one or the other. So I want everyone to spell out the word eight using letters. I want everyone to notice what letter is exactly in the center of the eight. Eight, of course, being the number of money, a more material energy. But you'll find right in the middle that letter G, the lowercase g being the seventh letter. Seven being more of a spiritual minded energy. Now, I also want to note that this is the only occurrence of the letter G in the written form of any number until you get up to an absurdly large number like a Googleplex. Why is this significant? Basically, what this shows us is that even within the material, you can find a seed of the spiritual. Next, look at the number seven. Write it out. Notice what letter is at the center. You have the V, the 22nd letter, 22 being the number of the master builder. Again, even within spiritual, you can find material, and within material, a seed of the spiritual. So, my advice: learn from others' mistakes. If you have an eight energy, if you're a goat in Eastern astrology, or even a Scorpio in Western astrology, if you're a 28, frankly, this could apply to anyone. Make sure that you find some deeper meaning within the material pursuits. Otherwise, it will just end up being empty and hollow, and you'll be materially rich, but spiritually impoverished, just like so many rich people throughout history who end up miserable, anyways. Conversely, if you're spiritually rich with knowledge and meaningful in your life, but you fail to be able to make anything actually happen on a tangible level, or you don't even try, it can end up being just as empty. Now, I use certain examples with particular numbers and letters to illustrate this point, but it can apply to anyone. Find that balance between the material and the spiritual in your life, depending on what your imprinted energy actually is, what is balanced for you. It may not be the same ratio as someone else. Everyone has a unique combination. With that, I'll open it up for some questions. Don't all speak at once. If there are no questions, we'll just end it off in a minute here.